Okay then. Hi, my name's Jess. I'm a ceramic artist from Worthing, and I've been making for about 30 years now in different techniques and processes. So started off as a hand builder, been hand building for years, got back into throwing really I suppose about 5 years ago. So I've started to do more and more throwing as the years have gone on. And today what I'm just going to be going through is how I make a very simple cup. So we have got about 450 grams of clay, and I have spiral wedged, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pat this down onto the surface of the wheel. So I use my hands and I just pat onto the surface, and then this basically helps to adhere it to my piece of wood or my wheel head. So at the moment I've got this bat system, which is absolutely fantastic, which I sort of do all my throwing on at home on, and I'm considering getting a couple of these actually for the actual pottery in Worthing as well. So I have a little studio at home which I do all my own stuff in, and then I have a studio in Worthing where I teach from as well. So I do a range of different classes, from hand building, group sessions where we cover a range of different things. I also do throwing workshops, one-to-one workshops, two-to-one workshops, small group workshops as well. So if you've got family or friends that you want to get together, you can also come and join me for a pottery session. And I run those pretty much weekly, and sometimes weekends as well. So if you're interested, you can pop over to my website, which is under jessicajordanceramics.com, or you can just give me an email, so it'll be jess@jessicajordanceramics.com, and we can have a discussion about potentially sort of coming and doing a workshop with me. So what I'm just doing here is I've secured my clay at the bottom, and now I'm actually coning up. So coning up, basically I'm supporting the clay and I'm going to push my hand into the surface. So I'm going to be using my left hand and I'm going to push into the surface, and that's going to help my clay just come up. And then as I'm doing that, I'm actually also sort of forcing my hands together to actually sort of bring up the cone. I'm going to bring the cone down again by supporting the surface, and then placing this part here of my hand over the top, then take my thumb over the top of that, and then slowly guide that clay down. As I come down and speed up the wheel, so get a little bit more sort of rotation going, hold my hands over the top to allow it to spin nicely in my hands. I'm going to do that one more time because I'm still not quite centered. So squeeze in, so all I'm doing is pull and squeeze. So I'm literally just pushing, can you see I'm just pushing into the side of the clay, and actually already it's starting to raise. So use my other hand as support, squeeze into the side, push the clay up, and as I'm pushing the clay up, I'm taking my thumb over the top, which actually sort of gets all the clay to come together in the middle. So I have a nice cone. Again, squeeze and follow that up with my hand. So my thumb is always ever so slightly higher than my other hand on the other side. Don't squeeze with that, I literally do all the pushing with this one. So back down we go, support. So I just put, if I push this over so you can see, as I come down, and then take it down. Again, and what I tend to sort of do is I take my body weight over the top as well. So that helps me get a much better sort of push. So I'm going to feel the side of it. That feels pretty centered. If it was off centered, you'll be able to see it do that. So can you see that wibble that's going on? That's telling me I'm off centered. So I'm going to have to come up again now and pull that back to the center. So pulling back to the center. So when you're doing this part here, when you're coning up, what you have to make sure is that you come off the clay really nice and gently. So you notice I allow the clay to go around in my hands before moving my hands out of the way, because if I come off suddenly, I'm going to actually put that off. So as I'm coming up to the clay, I'm actually centering it up, allowing that to stop moving, then I can go back down with that. So again, support, you see, push my thumb over the top, naturally comes, my hand slightly rotates, and take my weight over the top of that. Okay, so I'm going to remove a little bit of my skirt down at the bottom and make sure that we're spinning nicely. So if I can feel it in my hands going rotational wise without any movement, then I know that I'm centered. I can also use my finger at the side to actually sort of feel if my finger's being knocked off, then actually it means that it's actually not centered at all. No, that's fine. So I'm going to find my center and I just use my thumb just to come across the top, find where the center of my pot is. And I'm going to just rotate my thumb, cut into the clay. So I'm going down at an angle, cut into the clay, push down. Again, speed up slightly, a bit more water on my hands. At any time that you feel that the clay is pulling against your hands, add some more water. If you notice, I tend to actually take the slip, take it across my hands, and make sure I've got enough slip going all the way across my hands. Right, so now I'm going to pull my thumb across to open up. So I've got my depth, I'm quite happy with my depth. And sort of just basically kink my thumb, support my thumb as well as I'm coming out, pulling the clay out. Take my thumb across the base. So what I'm just doing here is I'm just making sure that my base is nice and flat. And if I think I'm a little bit too thick down now, I'm going to remove a little bit of the clay as well. Might as well do that now before it's too late. Push into my side wall, so I've got a nice indentation there for pulling. And I'm just going to finally finish off with my sponge. So what I've just done there is I've compressed the base with my thumb, and I'm just making double sure with my sponge. Right, so I'm going to now push the sides back into the centre, because if I leave them splayed out, it's going to naturally become a bowl, and I don't want it to be a bowl. I'm looking to actually make a mug. So again, push that back over. So now I'm back to the centre with a smaller opening, wider base. Remove a little bit of my clay down there because I want to get my fingers in there. And now I've got actually a little tiny ridge on the inside as well, which allows my fingers to sit nicely. Lots of water over the side, pushing the clay out, and then my hand on the outside is pushing the clay back. So that is the finger I'm using on the inside. I'm steadying myself with my thumb, so finger, thumb, extend. So the finger on the inside is pushing out, and the fingers on the outside are pushing the clay back, which allows me to get the growth in the clay. So I always do pinching fingers at the top, so thumb, finger over the top, finger over the top of that. That keeps that nice and round for my next pull. Make sure that I'm not splaying out too much. A little bit more water this time over the surface, so I've got a nice slippy surface. Again, push the clay in at the bottom, push the clay out. Can you see I've just pushed the clay out? Underneath that, I'm now going to start to pour the clay up. Don't forget to breathe, guys. come to the top, I'm just going to release the pressure so I don't put too much pressure on there. Again, pinch your fingers around the top, making sure that's nice and round. A little bit of clay just left there, so I'm just going to push that back a little bit. Remove a little bit of my clay. So I'm going to just take out some of the excess water because I don't want that to sit inside my pot. Take out the excess. And then I'm going to do some shaping. So I'm just going to make sure it's roughly to where I need it to be, which is, so I've got a little marker on my stick, which is where I can sort of see how far I need to go with my cups, so that most of my cups are the same. You can buy a sort of little tool where you can actually sort of set your gauge and set your height of your piece, but I have to admit this works just as well. See, there's a little bit more water in there. Right, so shaping. I'm going to remove a little bit of the bottom first. So I quite like a nice little angle at the bottom of my pots. So I'm just going to cut an angle. And again, I made my tool out of an old wooden fork. And I just cut basically. So you can see I've just cut the top at an angle. And then that makes me a nice cutting tool for the side of my clay. So you don't have to buy expensive tools, guys. I can also cut it to the angle that I want as well, so I know now that most of my cups will be roughly the same. Right, so I'm going to put a little bit of water on the outside because I'm going to be stretching the clay out a little bit. So, kidney, hand goes back in. I'm going to push the clay from the inside out. I'm going to run the kidney also on the outside. So where this splays out a little bit, I need to bring that in a little bit at the top. So I'm just going to basically take my hands around the top, allow it to go around. Can you see it sort of brings it in quite nicely? And if I take my hands slightly further down the pot and then slowly raise them, that will just bring that in. So now I've got that in, I'm going to just coax the inside in a little bit more. Again, go back down with my hands. Removing the excess water. Use my sponge just to push that bottom out a little bit more as well. And then I'm just going to make sure that my cup is coaxed in a little bit more. making sure that I'm happy with my shape. That's better. Make sure I've got pinchy fingers at the top. Remove any last little bits down the bottom here. And we are done. So all that needs is to dry out, and then we need to put a handle on it. Perfect. Thank you for listening. My name is Jessica Jordan. I'm a ceramic artist from West Sussex, and if you'd like to join me for any classes, please do, or if you want to subscribe to my channel, please do too. Alright, take care. Bye.